Father's Day is right around the corner. Let me tell you about my father. Hey, ScouterStan. I often get the question, how did I get started in scouting? Now, a lot of parents out there know that that's where they start. I often tell people that I was born into scouting. Now, what I mean by that is that when I was growing up, I knew nothing else. My father was a professional scouter. My father was born in 1937 in Bell Holler, West Virginia, an Appalachian poor, fatherless child. He grew up with no name on his birth certificate, but all the family and everybody that knew him as a child called him Jesse James. Now, he was living in an area that was extremely poor and had very few opportunities that weren't illegal to really succeed at anything. So there wasn't much, prospect there. Scouting was the only thing he could get into and earn money to support it. And that's kind of where it all started for him. He joined a scout troop, and he went through Cub Scouts, and he went through the Boy Scouts, and he did all that stuff. He even did summer camp as a staff member at summer camp. Now, at one of these summer camps, he made the conscious decision to join professional scouting. Now, this had several things involved that he may not at first didn't know, but it required him to get a 4-year degree. That was the first big hurdle that he had to do. Now, this degree at the time had to be in something with humanics. So it was a humanics degree, something in the social sciences. It was something that he had to have in order to be a professional scouter. So he enrolled at Salem College, which is in West Virginia. But when he enrolled, he had to have a legal name. Okay, his name was Jesse James, so he made that his first and his middle name, and the family he was living with was the Richards, and that's where the Richards family name came from. Jesse James Richards finalized his name and started his schooling at Salem College, where he met my mom. My mother is from the Michigan area around Battle Creek, and they were both going to Salem. They both are graduates of Salem, and shortly after that were married. My father, as a professional scouter, was being transferred every 2 or 3 years to a new council. During that time in Pittsburgh, my older brother was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Shortly after that, I was born in Paducah, Kentucky. That gives you a little idea of all the traveling that goes on when you're climbing the ladder as a professional scouter. Now, primarily, the scouting from Ohio all the way up into New England and that area, that's kind of where they kept my father going from council to council. Everything from DE to executive. He did the whole range of different things you could do in the scouting. As a professional, it was a pretty amazing process of how they would move them from place to place. That's how they moved up a lot of times. Even today, talking with scouters, I see that them moving every 2 or 3 years to a new council. Now, my family often vacationed in Florida and up in West Virginia. My mom's side of the family in Michigan, we spent a lot of time up there, but my grandparents, my mother's family, were snowbirds. They would often leave Michigan because of the harsh winters and move to Florida. So I often thought of Florida as home. Okay, because we always helped them out for some reason, we always helped them out when they were here in where I live today in Florida. Now, a lot of times we were going up to my cousins, Tom and Elsie. Tom and Elsie were up in West Virginia, and that's right outside of Bell. They had a fish camp on the New River near the the bridge that crosses, there's a really, really tall bridge that goes over the gorge there. Current day, I believe that's where the summit is actually located. But as a kid, that was a fish camp. And we went there, Tom's end of the family, that's the Richards family from West Virginia. They would all go down to that fish camp. And I believe the Bechtels were there, and there was a few other families that would go to that fish camp. So as a kid, I got to see all that. I camped in that area. I remember Black Snake getting into the tent. I mean, I remember all that stuff. And a lot of times, my dad and I are what we call night owls. My mom and my brother, my older brother, I call them larks because they get up in the morning. I'm not a big fan of early to rise, okay? And night owls, my dad and myself, we would sit up late at night and talk. It was wonderful because he would always have some big presentation. Back in the day, professionals actually helped out with wood badge quite a bit. Even today they do. And coming up with the charts and all the artwork and all that stuff, and that's something I helped him with. And we talked about professional scouting and all of the different things going on within scouting at the time. And it was quite an educational experience. Now, one of the neat things that happened with my father is that National recognized him as a good leader, as a good professional scouter, and they wanted to promote him along the path to expose him to that leadership knowledge that he would need at National. So they set him on that track. When that occurred, he was in Boston. It was with the Mass Bay Confederated Council, and I moved, because I was a teenager, I moved from there to Chicago, and that's where he was being transferred to. Now, he stayed in Chicago a little long, which is great, because I got to stay there, graduate high school, go into college, start a career, and get married. Okay, so I left the family at that point, and he and my mom got transferred off to New York City. Now, that council is huge. If you know about the New York City Council, it's gigantic, okay? So he was involved in a lot of that stuff at that time. Now, my wife and I, we decided to move to Florida, and because I always thought of it as home. My brother was living in Florida. My cousins, my aunts and uncles, they all live in Florida. That was what we always considered as home. Now, my wife and I were blessed with our only son in Orlando, here in Orlando. And my only son and his best friend drafted me back into scouting, okay? Now, I was a scout as a child. Obviously, my brother was. My mom was a den leader. You know, it was all encompassing. It was all I really knew was professional scouting, and from my father starting it all, and all that. It is amazing, and I was glad to get back into it. When my son begged me to get back into it, they made me the Cub Master. They had second thoughts, but luckily I got through that. And, the rest is something that we have talked about on this channel. But the life as a child growing up in that professional world was very eye-opening to scouting and its guiding purpose. My father was a wonderful, wonderful man. Now, unfortunately, back in 1990, he got cancer and died from it. So, but I learned so much from his guidance as growing up in that scouting environment. My father taught me the true meaning of the scout oath and law and how to incorporate that in my own life. That is an absolute gift. Now, if you're a scoutmaster or you have kids of your own, please give them that gift. The Scout Oath and Scout Law is a wonderful way to lead a meaningful life. And my father gave that to me. So that'll always be grateful to him for. And with that, I'm grateful that he and I spent time together working on little projects or wood badge or whatever. I was just a little kid, but I understood what was going on, and the owls and how important they were, and the songs and all the fun and all the jokes and all the stuff going on. That was wonderful, and I am so grateful for this man, my father, to give that to me at a very early age. He taught me to always be happy and look at the bright side of things instead of the negative. Negative's going to be there. Blech. Look at the happy part of life. Be positive and help others. That's a big part of what I do here. That's why this channel exists. That's the whole real reason that scouting is so important, not only in my life, but in your life. Think about it. Scouting is so important. It's always got to be there because we have the Scout Oath and Scout Law, and if you can live a life close to those things, you'll live a good life and a happier life. Always have a smile. One of the things my dad would get in trouble for is telling off-color jokes or jokes that weren't Scout appropriate. And that's the thing. If you can tell a joke like that, that's great, but you have to know the environment. He was telling those jokes. This is like the 70s, okay? It was a different world, okay? And we've evolved, okay, as people. Gosh, I hope we have. And, because of that, let's do good jokes, okay? Tell your scouts, your kids, keep this in mind. Tell jokes that are funny, they don't make fun of others, they don't cause problems with others. That's one of those things we have to do. We have to be friendly and courteous, okay, when we tell our jokes these days. That's at Scout Law. And I hear the voice of my father saying, hey, courteous, got to be kind, that kind of thing. I hear those things, and that's the wonderful thing. This Father's Day, please do that. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and do the Scouter's Joke of the Week. Why should you never mention the number 288 in a conversation? It's too gross. That's a math one, okay? So you're going to have to teach the Cub Scouts, a dozen is 144, and two of those is... Okay, so, that's one of the... You're going to have to... Most adults are going to get it right off, okay? But that's a joke that's out there. That's a math joke. We tell a lot of math jokes, right? So, this Father's Day, think about your own father. Think about fathers of scouting. All the fathers that have put in, moms, during Mom's Day, I said the same thing. So think about all the leaders in your life that gave you fatherly advice, and they were there all those times. So that's something to think about, something to consider. And just keep up the good work. You're doing great work. America needs scouting. Believe me, it needs it. It really, really needs it, and we know that. So keep up the good work, and I will see you on the trail.